Welcome back to the Dear Monday podcast. I'm TuRhonda Freeman. At the end of last episode, I told you someone new was coming. I said she'd been quiet until now, that she's still employed, still inside a role she spent years building, that she has a plan, that she's been building the off ramp carefully and quietly for longer than most people know. And that there's a question she keeps coming back to that she hasn't quite been able to say out loud. She's here now. I want to introduce you to Allison. And she's not standing at the edge of ownership the way Erin is. She's standing at the edge of something just as significant. And in some ways, I want to say more complicated. Erin is trying to decide whether to enter something. Allison already knows she's leaving. She's actually known it for a while. The question isn't whether. The question is, why is she still there? And underneath that question, if she's willing to look directly at it, is something she hasn't been fully honest about yet. Let me tell you about Allison's Mondays. She wakes up early. She's always been a morning person. That's when she thinks best, before the calendar fills and the demands arrive. She makes coffee, she opens her laptop, and for about 45 minutes before the workday begins, she works on the other thing, the plan, the research, the numbers she's been running quietly for months. Then she closes that window, opens her email, and becomes fully and professionally the person her organization expects her to be. Now, she's very good at this. The performance of complete presence in a role she's mentally already left. The senior leadership meeting where she's thoughtful and engaged, but her mind is already somewhere else. The planning cycle where she builds out a 12-month roadmap for a version of her career she has decided not to have. She does this without resentment. That's important to understand about Allison. She's not bitter about the role. She built it deliberately. She's proud of what she's made here. But she has reached the place where she knows with a certainty that doesn't require drama that this chapter is finished. She's just still in it. Now, from the outside, nothing has shifted. Her team doesn't know, the leadership doesn't know, her performance hasn't dipped. There are no visible cracks. From the inside, she's living two lives simultaneously. And she's been doing this for longer than she originally planned. She tells herself that it's temporary. She tells herself that she's being strategic. She tells herself the timing isn't right yet. Not quite, not yet, soon. And underneath all of that, there's a question she comes back to in the early morning, in those 45 minutes before the workday begins, when it's just her and the plan that hasn't moved as fast as she thought it would. I know what I need to do. So why am I still here? Let's talk about strategic timing versus expensive delay. Now, I want to spend some time here because I think it's the most important distinction in this episode. And it's actually the hardest one to make honestly when you're inside of it. Strategic timing, it's a real thing. And I want to say that clearly before anything else. There are genuinely good reasons to time and exit carefully. Financial runway that needs to reach a specific threshold, a vesting schedule worth completing, a transition that deserves to be handled with integrity, not abandoning a team mid-project, not leaving in a way that damages relationships that you've spent years building. These are legitimate. They reflect the judgment of someone who understands that how you leave matters. Now, Allison has those reasons, and they are real. What I want to offer is a way of distinguishing between those reasons and something that can look exactly like them, but doing a different job. because there's a version of strategic timing that is actually expensive delay. And the cost of not naming it compounds. So here is how to tell the difference. Strategic timing has a defined condition. There is a specific milestone, a date, financial threshold, a project completion that marks the end of the waiting. She can say, when X happens, I move. And X is real, within reach, and she's working toward it. Expensive delay has a moving condition. When the market settles, when the bonus clears, when the timing is better, the conditions keep updating. Not because the situation changed, but because the movement hasn't happened yet. And the condition is adjusting to keep it that way. You see, strategic timing is producing something. The time inside is generating real value for what comes next. Capital accumulation, a completed milestone, a foundation being built. The waiting is making the exit stronger. Expensive delay is protecting something. The time inside is holding a position, not building one. The income is real. The stability is real. And both of those things are doing more work than a strategic plan might account for. So the question, if we ask honestly, is not which one sounds better. Is the waiting producing something or protecting something? Those are not the same question. And the answer changes what the timeline actually cost. So the question in this episode is, what are you pretending not to know? That's what I want to ask in this episode. Because here's the thing about Allison. She is not someone who lacks information. She's not confused. She's not waiting for a signal from the outside the way Erin was. She's known for a while. And there are specific things she knows that she has been choosing quietly not to act on. So let's name them. She knows that there is a window. The version of Allison who exits at the height of her career, reputation intact, network active, leverage at its peak. The option to make the transition on her own terms is a different asset than the version who exits a year or two past it. She has watched other people navigate the same close range. She knows how it goes when someone stays too long. The shift in how they're perceived, the way the energy changes, the way leaving begins to feel like a relief to everybody, including the person who's leaving. She knows there's a window. She knows the windows close. And she has been telling herself she's still inside it while not looking directly at how much of it remains. She knows what the dual life is costing her. Not just in energy, though it costs there too, but in identity, in momentum, in the creative and strategic attention she is spending on maintaining a role she has already decided to leave rather than building what she actually wants to build. So there is a version of herself she is not becoming while she maintains the version she's decided to leave behind. Every month has a cost in both directions. What she keeps by staying and what she doesn't build by not going. She knows the first number. She may have been pretending the second one isn't real. She knows what one more year actually costs. She has done that financial calculation. She knows what another year of her current compensation looks like, what it does for the runway, why it matters. That number is real. What she may not have looked at with the same rigor is the other side of the ledger. One more year of not building what she actually wants to build. One more year of this dual life, the split attention, the morning window, the performance of full presence in a role she's already decided to leave. One more year of telling herself the timing isn't quite right. That's also a real number. It's just harder to quantify and harder to look at directly. So she often doesn't. She knows what public failure would cost. Now, this is a big one. This is one I don't think we talk about enough, especially for a woman who has built the kind of career that Allison has built. Her success is not private, it's documented, it's visible. The title is on her LinkedIn. Her network has watched her rise. The colleagues who said, "I can't imagine this place without you," are going to watch what happens next. The professional community that knows her as capable, incredible, and accomplished will see whatever comes after the exit. And here's the thing that lives underneath the strategic framing, the financial prudence, all of it. As long as she hasn't left, she hasn't failed publicly. The corporate role is not just an income, it is reputation insurance. It is the thing that means whatever else is uncertain, that her professional standing is intact. To leave is to make a bet on herself that everyone she knows can see. And if that bet doesn't pay off the way she's planned, if the business struggles, if the transition takes longer than expected, if the version of herself she's been building toward doesn't arrive on schedule, the fall is not private. It's in front of everyone who has ever believed that she had it all figured out. No one talks about this kind of fear directly. It doesn't fit cleanly into a financial analysis or strategic timeline, but it is real. And for a woman like Allison, I think it's significant. The higher the public success, the longer the distance to the ground. She knows why she's really still there. This is the one that takes the most honesty to name, and I'm going to name it carefully and honestly because I'm not trying to tell Allison something about herself she doesn't already know. I'm trying to give her language for something that she's been circling. Underneath those legitimate reasons, financial prudence, transition integrity, the strategic timing, the fear of public exposure, there's often something quieter and even more personal. It might be the uncertainty of who she is without the structure that has defined her. The way a senior title shapes how she enters a room, what she doesn't have to prove, the version of herself she can take for granted. And the question she hasn't fully answered yet, whether the version of herself she's been building toward in those early morning hours is someone she trusts as completely as she trusts this one. It might be the thing she's planning, the thing she works on before the workday begins, might not be as good in reality as it is in the planning. That the version of Allison who builds something of her own might not show up the way she needs her to. Now, these things don't make her weak, they make her honest if she lets herself be. And the only way to work with them is to name them, not perform her way around them. So I want to ask again, more specifically this time, what do you already know that you haven't been willing to act on? Not as a pressure, but as a starting point. So let's talk about what the exit actually cost. Before I close, I want to name something that most exit conversations skip. And the decision exposure review is specifically designed to surface. The exit is not just a career move, it is a financial commitment with a real exposure profile. When Allison leaves, she is leaving stable income. Whatever she moves toward next will take time to generate what she's making now. And that timeline is rarely as short as projected. The gap between her last paycheck and her next sustainable income stream is a specific number. And the household picture across 12, 18, 24 months is a specific picture. The conditions that need to be true for the transition to be structurally sound, not optimistic, not convenient, sound, are specific conditions. Most people in Allison's position have the financial calculation on paper. Fewer have stress tested it. What does the picture look like if it takes 6 months longer than planned? Is her liquidity protected? Or is it strained? Does the path she's considering give her options if she needs to adjust? Or does it foreclose them? What does getting out look like if the next chapter doesn't hold? And is she prepared for that to be more complicated than getting in? Now, these are not questions designed to slow her down. They are questions that determine whether the exit she's building toward holds under the weight of reality, not just the weight of the plan. I believe the exit belongs in the same room as any other major financial commitment. It deserves the same independent scrutiny. And it is almost never given that scrutiny because there are industries around career transitions. They are designed to move people forward, not through. And that gap is exactly where the advisory work behind this show lives. So, in closing, I want to bring it back to Allison just one more time. She's not here because she lacks information. She's not here because she hasn't thought it through. She is here because the exit she's been planning is a real financial commitment, one that requires the same discipline and scrutiny that she would apply to any major decision. And it hasn't received that scrutiny just yet. The waiting may be strategic. It may also be extensive delay. The difference is in what it's producing and whether the timeline has a real condition or a moving condition. Here's what I want to leave her with. Strategic timing builds toward a defined exit. Expensive delay extends the cost of staying without advancing the structure of what comes next. Both can look identical from the outside. The difference is in what the waiting is actually producing and what it's costing on the other side of the ledger. Allison knows which one she's in. And if she's not entirely sure, that's the conversation worth having before any decision is made. So the question for this week is: the waiting producing something or protecting something? And what is it costing on the other side of the ledger that I haven't looked at? I want to share something before I go. To any listener who is in Allison's position specifically, who is close to an exit, not an entry, and wondering whether the advisory work behind this show has anything to do with you. It does. What Allison is navigating is a decision with real financial and personal exposure. She's leaving a stable income. That is a commitment with a risk profile. What she moves toward next carries its own. The in between has a cost. And the timing of the exit has consequences that compound. That's what the decision exposure review was built for. This exact moment. Not to validate the exit, not to build toward confidence in a decision that you've already made, but to map the real exposure, the financial bridge, the household picture across the months before you're generating what you were making, the conditions that need to be true for the transition to be structurally sound before the decision is irreversible, not after. If you're in this, and the questions in today's episode are the questions that you have been sitting with in your early mornings, I want you to go to www.dearmonday.co. That's where this conversation continues. Clarity before commitment. Now, coming up in episode 5, Erin is at the edge of a commitment. Allison is at the edge of an exit. Both of them are making a choice, hard, uncertain, but made from a position of relative stability. The ground beneath them, solid, even when the path forward isn't. Then there's a third woman. Her ground moved without her permission. She didn't choose this moment. She didn't plan for it. She woke up one day inside of a version of her life she hadn't decided to be in. And now she has to figure out what to build from here. She's not starting over. She's starting from experience. Next episode, we meet Renee. I'll see you next week.